"You are lying." The words were only 3 simple words, but when they echoed through the royal court of Silvermoon Kingdom, every voice disappeared. Hundreds of nobles stood frozen beneath the golden ceilings of the Grand Hall, unable to believe what they had just heard. And Omega had looked directly at the Alpha King and called him a liar. And the most surprising part was not the accusation. It was the fact that she said it without fear. Lily Carter had never planned to stand before the royal court. She had never wanted attention, power, or recognition. She was simply a healer from a quiet village beyond the kingdom walls, someone who spent her days gathering herbs, caring for villagers, and helping those who had nowhere else to turn. To most people in Silvermoon, an Omega like Lily was someone meant to remain unnoticed, someone who should listen, obey, and never challenge those above her. But Lily had always believed one thing. Truth did not become less important because the person speaking it had a lower status. That belief was the reason she stood inside the royal hall that morning. The kingdom had gathered to hear King Adrian Whitmore announce a decision that would affect thousands of lives. The Alpha King was respected across the land. He was known as a wise ruler, a powerful leader, and a man whose words carried the weight of the crown. Every noble in the room waited for his announcement with complete trust. Everyone except Lily. As she listened carefully, something felt wrong. She noticed details others ignored. She remembered reports she had studied. She recognized information that did not match the truth she had witnessed among the people outside the palace. At first, Lily tried to remain silent. She knew the danger of speaking against a King Alpha in front of the entire court. She knew people would judge her before hearing her reasons. But when she saw the decision moving forward based on information that was not complete, she could not stay quiet. Her voice escaped before she could think twice. "Your Majesty, that is not the truth." The entire hall turned toward her. The silence afterward felt heavier than any accusation. Adrian Whitmore looked at the Omega standing among the nobles. He expected hesitation. He expected an apology. He expected fear. Instead, he saw someone standing with calm determination. Lily was not trying to embarrass him. She was not trying to gain influence. She simply believed someone needed to speak. For the first time in years, the Alpha King heard a voice that was not shaped by fear or ambition. He heard honesty. The court waited for his reaction, expecting anger or rejection. But Adrian remained silent, studying the woman who had just challenged the most powerful position in the kingdom. He did not know her name. He did not know her story. But in that moment, one thought crossed his mind. Who was this Omega who had nothing to gain, yet still chose to tell him the truth? The royal court remained silent after Lily Carter's unexpected words, but the moment did not end with anger or punishment as everyone expected. Instead, King Adrian Whitmore simply looked at the Omega standing before him, trying to understand what made her different from everyone else in the room. For years, the Alpha King had watched nobles carefully choose every word around him. They praised his decisions, agreed with his plans, and rarely questioned anything connected to the crown. But Lily had done the opposite. She had stepped forward when silence would have been easier. After the court session ended, Adrian requested a private explanation. The palace advisors were surprised. Many believed the Omega would be removed from the discussion immediately. Instead, the King Alpha asked to hear her reasons. Lily entered the smaller royal chamber with calm steps, though she knew every person in the palace was watching her. She understood the risk of speaking honestly to a ruler, but she also knew she could not ignore what she had discovered. Adrian stood near the large windows overlooking Silvermoon Kingdom and asked, "Why did you believe you had the right to challenge my words before the entire court?" Lily remained respectful, but answered honestly. Because the truth should not depend on who says it. Those words stayed in the room. Adrian expected excuses. He expected fear. He expected an attempt to protect herself. Instead, he found someone who was willing to accept the consequences of honesty. Lily explained the information she had seen while working with villagers outside the capital. She described the concerns of ordinary people, the missing details in the reports, and the reasons she believed the decision needed to be reconsidered. She did not accuse Adrian of intentionally misleading anyone. She simply pointed out that even a wise leader could receive incomplete information. The Alpha King listened carefully. The more she spoke, the more he realized something unusual. Lily was not challenging his authority. She was protecting the people his authority was meant to serve. Later that day, Adrian reviewed the records again. To his surprise, he discovered that some important details had indeed been overlooked. The Omega who had embarrassed him before the court had actually helped him see a problem hidden beneath layers of tradition and formal reports. News of what happened spread quickly throughout Silvermoon Kingdom. Some nobles criticized Lily for speaking beyond her position. Others quietly admired her courage. But Adrian found himself thinking about one thing more than anything else. He wanted to know who she truly was. Not just the Omega who spoke before the court. Not just the healer from a small village. He wanted to understand the person behind those fearless words. Meanwhile, Lily returned to her simple life outside the palace walls. She did not believe she had done anything extraordinary. She simply believed that people deserved honesty, whether they were villagers or kings. She continued gathering herbs, helping families, and living the same way she always had. She did not know that the Alpha King was beginning to remember her name. She did not know that one moment of truth had changed the way he viewed the world around him. And she certainly did not know that the man who ruled an entire kingdom had become curious about the one person who dared to tell him he was wrong. The days after the royal court meeting passed quietly, but the name Lily Carter continued to appear in conversations throughout Silvermoon Kingdom. Some people spoke about her with disbelief, wondering how an Omega from a small village could stand before the Alpha King without lowering her voice. Others spoke with admiration, because they had never seen anyone challenge the royal court with such calm honesty. But Lily herself remained unchanged. She returned to her village, walked the familiar forest paths, and continued her work as a healer. To her, nothing had changed. She had not spoken because she wanted attention. She had spoken because she believed someone needed to. Meanwhile, inside Silvermoon Palace, King Adrian Whitmore found himself thinking about that moment more often than he expected. He had faced countless challenges as the Alpha King. He had negotiated with leaders, protected his kingdom's interests, and carried decisions that affected thousands of people. Yet a simple conversation with one Omega had created a feeling he could not ignore. It was not anger. It was curiosity. Adrian wanted to understand why Lily had been so different from everyone around him. One morning, he decided to visit the villages outside the capital under the excuse of reviewing local conditions. His advisors expected him to focus on resources and reports, but Adrian had another reason. He wanted to see the world Lily came from. When he arrived near Frostvale Village, he saw something unexpected. The people there did not describe Lily as a woman who had challenged the Alpha King. They described her as the person who stayed late to help sick villagers, the healer who shared her supplies with families in need, and the Omega who never treated anyone as less important. Adrian watched from a distance as Lily helped an elderly villager organize herbs for healing. She did not notice the royal carriage nearby. She did not change her behavior because someone powerful was watching. That was when Adrian understood something important. Lily's honesty in the royal court was not an act of bravery created in that moment. It was simply who she had always been. Later, Adrian approached her and introduced himself, though Lily already knew exactly who he was. She looked surprised to see the Alpha King standing outside her small healing cottage. "Your Majesty, I did not expect you here," she said. Adrian looked around at the simple surroundings. "I wanted to understand the person who spoke the truth when everyone else remained silent." Lily lowered her eyes slightly. "I only said what I believed was right." Adrian smiled faintly. "That is exactly why I wanted to meet you." Their conversation was different from the formal discussions inside the palace. There were no advisors, no nobles, and no expectations. For the first time, Adrian spoke with someone who treated him like a person rather than a crown. Lily asked about the kingdom, the responsibilities he carried, and the challenges he faced. She did not judge him. She listened. And Adrian realized that the Omega who once called him a liar was also the first person in years who made him feel understood. As the sun began to set over Frostvale Village, Adrian returned to the palace with a new perspective. He had searched for the reason behind Lily's courage, but he discovered something far more meaningful. The truth was not hidden in her words. It was revealed through the way she lived every day. And for the first time, the Alpha King wondered if destiny had brought someone into his life who could change more than a single decision. Perhaps she could change the way he saw the entire world. The morning after King Adrian Whitmore returned from Frostvale Village, the atmosphere inside Silvermoon Palace felt different. The Alpha King had always been known as a ruler who listened carefully before making decisions. But now the people around him noticed something new. He was asking questions not only about reports and strategies, but about the lives of ordinary people throughout the kingdom. His visit to the village had reminded him that a ruler could not understand his people by sitting only inside palace walls. However, not everyone welcomed the change. Some members of the royal council were uncomfortable with the attention given to Lily Carter. They believed an Omega from a small village should not influence matters connected to the crown. They saw her honesty as a challenge to tradition rather than a reminder of responsibility. When Lily was invited back to the palace to discuss improvements for the kingdom's healing resources, she immediately felt the weight of every watching eye around her. She knew many nobles still questioned why Adrian valued her opinion. But she did not come to prove herself. She came because people needed better care. During the council meeting, several advisors presented plans based on old traditions. Lily listened quietly until she noticed a problem that others had overlooked. The information sounded perfect on paper, but it did not match what she had seen in the villages. She carefully explained her concerns, using examples from the people she had helped. One advisor questioned why an Omega believed she could understand matters of the kingdom. The room became silent. Lily looked toward him calmly and answered, "Because the people affected by these decisions are not just names on a document. They are families, workers, and individuals who deserve to be heard." Adrian watched the room carefully. He saw the same courage that first caught his attention. Lily was not seeking recognition. She was not trying to stand above anyone. She was simply reminding everyone of something they had forgotten. A kingdom existed for its people. After the meeting ended, Adrian walked with Lily through the palace gardens. The flowers were beginning to bloom, and the peaceful path created a rare moment away from royal expectations. "You realize you continue to surprise everyone here," Adrian said. Lily smiled softly. "I am not trying to surprise anyone. I am only trying to be honest." Adrian looked at her thoughtfully. Most people change their words when they stand before the crown. Lily looked back at him. Maybe that is because they see the crown before they see the person. Her words stayed with him. Adrian had spent years protecting a kingdom that respected his title, but he rarely wondered if anyone truly knew him. Lily did not treat him as a symbol of power. She treated him as someone carrying a difficult responsibility. As days passed, Adrian found himself seeking her perspective more often. He asked about villages, healing methods, and the challenges people faced beyond the palace. Each conversation showed him another side of the Omega who had once stood before the court and spoken without fear. Meanwhile, Lily began noticing something unexpected about the Alpha King. Behind the confident ruler was someone who carried many burdens alone. She realized that strength did not mean never needing support. It meant being willing to accept wisdom from others. Neither of them understood where this connection would lead. But with every honest conversation, the distance between the Omega healer and the Alpha King slowly disappeared. What began as a disagreement before the court was becoming something far more meaningful, built not on power or position, but on trust and understanding. The connection between Lily Carter and King Adrian Whitmore continued to grow quietly, hidden beneath the daily responsibilities of Silver Moon Kingdom. Neither of them had expected their paths to become connected in such a way. What began with a single honest sentence before the royal court had slowly become a relationship built on trust, respect, and understanding. Adrian still remembered the moment Lily looked at him without fear. It was something he had never experienced before. People saw him as the Alpha King first, and as a person second. Lily was different. She noticed the person behind the title. One morning, Adrian invited Lily to visit the royal archives, a place where generations of history had been preserved. He wanted to show her the records that shaped many of the kingdom's traditions. As they walked through the endless shelves of ancient books, Lily looked around with curiosity. She had spent her life studying herbs and healing, not royal history, but she understood that knowledge was another way to help people. Adrian stopped near a collection of old documents describing the relationship between leaders and their advisors throughout history. "Many rulers believe strength means having every answer," Adrian said. "But sometimes the most important answers come from people willing to speak honestly." Lily looked at him with a gentle expression. Maybe strength is not about knowing everything. Maybe it is about being willing to learn. Those words stayed with him. Adrian had spent years preparing. himself to lead, but nobody had ever reminded him that even a King Alpha could continue growing. While their conversations became more frequent, the opinions inside the palace remained divided. Some nobles respected Lily's wisdom, while others believed she was changing traditions that had existed for generations. They questioned why an Omega should have such influence near the throne. Lily heard the whispers, but she refused to let them change her purpose. She had never entered the palace seeking a position. She had never wanted power. She only wanted decisions to reflect the needs of the people. One afternoon, Adrian found Lily helping the palace healers organize their supplies. Instead of waiting for instructions, she had noticed problems and quietly worked to solve them. The healers who once doubted her now listened carefully to her suggestions. Adrian watched from a distance and realized something important. Lily did not inspire people because of her status. She inspired them because she cared. "You know," Adrian said as he approached, "most people would try to impress the palace after receiving this kind of attention." Lily looked surprised. "Why would I do that?" she asked. "Helping people was my purpose before anyone knew my name." Her answer reminded him of the moment they first met. She had not spoken in the royal court because she wanted recognition. She had spoken because she believed someone needed to hear the truth. That evening, Adrian stood alone on the palace balcony overlooking the kingdom. For the first time in many years, he felt that the weight of leadership was not something he had to carry completely by himself. Meanwhile, Lily returned to her room, unaware of how deeply her presence had affected the Alpha King. She only knew that behind the crown was a person who wanted to do what was right. And behind the quiet Omega healer was a strength that no title could measure. As the moon rose above Silver Moon Kingdom, the distance between two very different worlds continued to disappear. The Alpha King had once searched for loyalty among powerful figures. Instead, he found it in the one person brave enough to tell him the truth. The seasons changed slowly in Silver Moon Kingdom, but the transformation happening inside the palace moved even faster. What began as a simple disagreement between an Omega healer and the Alpha King had become something that many people in the kingdom could no longer ignore. Lily Carter continued to walk the palace halls with the same quiet confidence she had always carried. She did not act like someone who had gained influence. She did not seek special treatment. She still spent her mornings helping healers, listening to villagers, and finding ways to improve the lives of ordinary people. King Adrian Whitmore noticed that this was what made her different. Many people changed when they entered the world of royalty. They became careful with their words and focused on how others viewed them. Lily remained exactly the same person she had always been. One afternoon, Adrian invited Lily to join him during a visit to several villages outside the capital. He wanted her perspective because he had learned that she understood the struggles of the people better than many officials who only read reports. As they traveled through the countryside, Adrian saw how naturally people trusted her. Villagers greeted Lily warmly, children smiled when she arrived, and families shared their concerns with her because they knew she would listen. Adrian watched quietly and realized that leadership was not only about making decisions from a throne. It was about understanding the lives behind those decisions. During their journey, Lily noticed that Adrian also carried a side of himself that few people saw. Away from the palace, he was not only the powerful Alpha King. He was someone who worried about making the right choices and protecting everyone who depended on him. "You always look like you are carrying the entire kingdom alone," Lily said gently while they walked beside a quiet field. Adrian looked surprised by her observation. "Is it that obvious?" he asked. Lily smiled softly. "Only to someone who pays attention." Her answer made him pause. For years, many people had admired his strength, but few had noticed his exhaustion. Lily never looked at him as someone above her. She looked at him as someone who also needed understanding. When they returned to the palace, the changes Lily inspired became more visible. The healing department began working more closely with villages. The council started considering the experiences of people outside the capital. Slowly, the kingdom began moving toward a different future. However, some members of the royal court remained uncomfortable. They believed the old traditions were being challenged too quickly. During another council gathering, they questioned whether Adrian's trust in Lily was based on reason or emotion. The room became quiet as everyone waited for the Alpha King's response. Adrian looked around the chamber before speaking. "I trust her because she has shown something many people forget. A person's value is not determined by their title. His words surprised the court. Lily stood beside him, but she did not feel like someone being protected. She felt like someone being respected. Later that evening, Adrian and Lily stood together in the palace gardens. The flowers around them had begun to bloom after months of careful attention from the healers. "You changed this place without trying to change anything," Adrian said. Lily looked at the garden and smiled. "Sometimes people only need someone to remind them what matters." The Alpha King looked at her and realized something he had never expected. The person who challenged him before the court was not someone trying to stand against him. She was someone who helped him become a better ruler. And for the first time in years, Adrian wondered if the greatest strength he had found was not within his crown, but in the honesty of the Omega who dared to speak the truth. The relationship between Lily Carter and King Adrian Whitmore had become one of the most unexpected changes in Silvermoon Kingdom. What began as a single moment of honesty before the royal court had slowly transformed the way people viewed leadership, tradition, and the value of every individual. Yet Lily never saw herself as someone changing the kingdom. She simply continued doing what she had always done. She listened. She helped. She cared. Inside the palace, more people began to understand why. The Alpha King respected her. The healers who once questioned her presence now welcomed her advice. The servants who once kept their distance began sharing their thoughts with her. Lily did not gain their trust by demanding it. She earned it through every small action that showed she valued them. Adrian noticed this change every day. He had ruled Silvermoon for years, but he had never seen someone influence people without seeking authority. Lily did not command attention. She created connection. One morning, Adrian invited Lily to attend a gathering with representatives from different regions of the kingdom. The meeting was designed to discuss improvements for villages that had long been overlooked. Many officials arrived with prepared speeches and carefully chosen words, but Lily approached the gathering differently. She spent time listening to the villagers before the discussion even began. She asked about their daily struggles, their concerns, and the challenges they faced. Adrian watched as people who were usually quiet began sharing their thoughts because Lily made them feel heard. During the meeting, one noble questioned whether the opinions of common villagers should influence royal decisions. He believed tradition had always guided the kingdom and that change should happen slowly. Lily looked at him calmly and replied, "Tradition should protect people, not prevent us from helping them." The room became quiet. Her words were simple, but they carried the same honesty that had first caught Adrian's attention. The Alpha King realized that Lily was not trying to erase the past. She was reminding everyone why traditions existed in the first place. They were meant to serve the people, not separate them. After the gathering, Adrian walked with Lily through the palace gardens. The evening sunlight covered the flowers and pathways with a warm glow. For a moment, there was no court, no expectations, and no royal responsibilities. There were only two people sharing a quiet conversation. "You never seem afraid of what others think," Adrian said. Lily looked at the garden around them. "I used to be afraid, but I learned that hiding the truth only makes problems grow." Adrian thought about how different his life had been. He had always been surrounded by people who feared disappointing him. Lily was the first person who understood that honesty was not disrespect. It was a form of trust. As their connection continued to grow, the kingdom began noticing the changes around them. The Alpha King who once made decisions alone now welcomed different perspectives. The Omega who was once ignored became someone many people looked toward for guidance. But not everyone was ready to accept this new future. Some members of the old royal families believed Lily's influence had gone too far. They feared that the balance of tradition was changing. Adrian knew another challenge was approaching. Yet this time, he did not feel uncertain, because he had learned something important from the Omega who once called him a liar. The strongest leaders were not those who never questioned themselves. They were the ones brave enough to listen when someone showed them the truth. The changes spreading throughout Silvermoon Kingdom could no longer be ignored. What started as one Omega speaking honestly before the royal court had become a symbol of something much greater. People who once believed their voices did not matter were beginning to realize that they deserved to be heard. But with every change came resistance from those who feared losing the traditions that had always protected their position. Inside the royal council chamber, several noble families gathered to discuss the future of the kingdom. Their concerns were not about the people in the villages or the improvements happening across the land. Their concerns were about the influence of Lily Carter. They believed an Omega should never stand so close to the decisions of an Alpha King. Adrian Whitmore listened carefully as they expressed their doubts. He understood that change was difficult for many people, especially those who had benefited from the old ways. But he also remembered what Lily had taught him. A leader could not protect the future by refusing to see the present. Later that day, Adrian asked Lily to meet him in the palace gardens. The evening air was peaceful, and the flowers she had helped restore were beginning to bloom throughout the royal grounds. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They simply enjoyed the quiet away from the expectations of the court. "They are questioning your place here," Adrian finally said. Lily looked toward the garden paths where palace workers and healers moved together. "I expected that," she answered softly. "People often question things they do not understand." Adrian looked at her with concern. "Does it not bother you?" Lily smiled gently. "Of course it does. I am still a person. But if I stop because others doubt me, then the people who need help will lose a voice." Her answer reminded Adrian of the first day they met. She had never been fearless because she believed she was stronger than everyone else. She was fearless because she believed something mattered more than her own comfort. The next royal gathering became a defining moment for the kingdom. Adrian stood before the court and addressed the concerns surrounding Lily. The nobles expected him to explain why he allowed an Omega to influence royal decisions. Instead, he spoke about what he had learned. A kingdom is not made stronger by ignoring the wisdom of its people. It becomes stronger when every person has the chance to contribute. The room remained silent as his words settled over the court. He did not defend Lily because of personal feelings. He defended her because her actions had proven her value. Lily stood quietly beside him, realizing that Adrian was not simply protecting her. He was protecting the idea that truth and compassion belonged to everyone. After the gathering, many people in the kingdom began seeing the Alpha King differently. He was still respected for his strength, but now they also saw his willingness to listen. And they saw Lily differently as well. She was no longer only the Omega healer from a small village. She had become a reminder that courage did not always appear through power. Sometimes it appeared through a quiet voice speaking at the right moment. As the moonlight covered Silvermoon Palace, Adrian and Lily looked across the kingdom together. They knew challenges were still ahead, but they also knew something important had changed forever. The distance between the crown and the people was no longer as wide as it once was. And the Alpha King who once believed leadership meant carrying every burden alone had finally discovered the strength of having someone beside him who would always tell him the truth. The story of Silvermoon Kingdom changed forever, but not because of a great battle or a powerful declaration. It changed because one person chose to speak the truth when everyone else remained silent. Years after Lily Carter first stood before the royal court, people still remembered the moment when an Omega with no royal title reminded an Alpha King what true leadership meant. But for Lily, the journey had never been about becoming important. She had never wanted a crown, a position, or the attention of the kingdom. She only wanted people to be treated with kindness and respect. Even after becoming known throughout Silvermoon, Lily continued the same simple life she had always lived. She visited villages, worked with healers, and listened to families who needed support. The difference was that now, her voice reached places it never had before. People who once believed their opinions did not matter began sharing their thoughts openly. The kingdom was slowly learning that every person had something valuable to offer. King Adrian Whitmore also changed in ways no one expected. He remained a respected Alpha King, but the way he ruled became different. He no longer believed a ruler needed to carry every decision alone. He created space for others to speak, because he had learned that wisdom could come from unexpected places. One evening, Adrian and Lily stood together on the balcony overlooking Silvermoon Kingdom. The lights from villages below created a peaceful view across the land. The same kingdom that once separated people by status was beginning to understand a new idea. Strength was not only found in authority. It was found in compassion, honesty, and the willingness to listen. "Do you ever think about that day in the court?" Adrian asked quietly. Lily smiled as she looked toward the horizon. "Sometimes. I still cannot believe I actually said those words." Adrian laughed softly. Neither could anyone else. Lily looked at him with a gentle expression. "I was not trying to challenge you, Your Majesty." "I know," Adrian replied. "That is what made it different." He remembered that moment clearly. Everyone else had been trying to protect themselves. Lily had been trying to protect the truth. Over time, the kingdom began telling the story of the Omega who changed the Alpha King. But those who truly understood their journey knew it was not about one person changing another. Lily helped Adrian see the world beyond the palace walls. Adrian helped Lily understand that her voice mattered beyond the small village where she grew up. Together, they created something neither of them had expected. A future where people were valued not because of their position, but because of who they were. The greatest lesson of Silvermoon Kingdom was not written in ancient books or carved into palace walls. It was found in a simple moment when someone brave enough spoke honestly and someone powerful enough chose to listen. And whenever future generations told the story of the Alpha King and the Omega Healer, they remembered the same truth. A gentle voice could change a kingdom. A truthful heart could reach even the highest throne. And sometimes, the person everyone overlooked was the one who helped the world discover a better path forward.